I had this voice screaming at me internally. This is going to change your life. This is going to be huge.
Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. At Bumble, it was all about changing the gender roles.
People are so paralyzed by fear, yet they're so unfulfilled by the fact that they don't know their purpose.
I really like things that are a little bit controversial. After Bumble, I started my own company called Sunroom, like a blend between Instagram and OnlyFans. It was met with a lot of, don't do that, you'll never be on a board, this will ruin your reputation.
I always say entrepreneurship is like the biggest mental health journey.
My little inner self-doubt voice with Bumble was like, oh, was that all a fluke?
We keep ourselves in boxes like a lot of time. And I think we project that it's like the world putting us in boxes, but really I think it's like our own fear.
What would partial success look like? And I think that is a much more interesting question.
86% of women say that motherhood will jeopardize their career. A lot of women believe that they can't have both.
I was one of the 80+% of people. I've had 2 abortions with my current partner, who I now have 2 kids with. I think we just need to be having honest conversations about how hard it can be to know when the right time is. And if I've built a business that can't survive with me taking some time off to have my baby, then maybe I haven't built a business that's that good.
You're listening to How I See It, hosted by Han. You guessed it, that's me. I am here to motivate and inspire you with guests from all different industries and backgrounds. So get ready for personal stories of success, of growth, full of highs and lows, and of course, unapologetic realness. This is How I See It.
You guys, I am so excited to introduce Michelle Battersby to How I See It podcast. She's done a ton, and I'm so excited to interview her because I feel like as someone who's very ambitious and is scared to not get all of my goals checked off the list, she has really had a colorful career. She launched Bumble in Australia. She was one of the top 10 Bumble employees. She sold her own tech company as the co-founder of Sunroom, and she is now the president of the largest network for Moms Peanut. I'm already impressed. I'm so excited to get to know her. Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
I am so excited to get to know you. Like I said, I feel like you've had a very colorful background, and I feel like the careers you've had are kind of all different with like a through line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you always had the confidence to go for where the road kind of led? Because I feel like sometimes people are really scared of the fact that they're going to be stuck in a box forever.
I don't think I always had the confidence. I remember very vividly reaching a point in my career when I was about 24 or 25. Like, I did take the pretty traditional career path. Like, I went to uni, I did an undergrad, I did a master's, I got an internship at a bank, and I thought that was what you were meant to do.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, my first job in a bank, I am killing it. Like, I would walk through the glass revolving door in the city, and I would put on my like power suit outfits and catch the bus in, and I was like, yep, that's going to be my life, and I'm going to work my way up the corporate ladder because that's what I have seen my parents do. You know, I think for a lot of millennials, we also have parents that may have worked for 1 or 2 organizations their entire life and just like kept progressing. It was different times then. Anyway, I remember at about 24 or 25, kind of wondering, why don't I care as much as everyone else around me? And that feeling really bothered me. And I think it was my intuition back then alerting me to the fact that I was not passionate about what I was doing. It wasn't lighting a fire in me, and I didn't like how that felt. And I started telling my friends that, just saying, I'm not sure if I can see myself doing this for the rest of my life, but if it's not this, I actually have no idea what it will be because I did a master's degree in human resource management and industrial relations. So I was thinking this is where my skill set is, like, it's my only option. I don't really know. But it was those conversations that ended up completely changing the course of my career because one of the friends I had spoken to in a roundabout way knew Whitney Wolfe Herd, who co-founded Tinder and was the founder of Bumble.
So
And
cool.
yeah, like 3 months later, that conversation came back around, and this friend said, "Are you still not liking your job? I think you should take a phone call with this woman. She's looking for someone to launch Bumble in Australia." And I was 25, didn't like my job, had nothing to lose. And Whitney didn't have many options because this was 2016. I'd never heard of Bumble. None of my friends had heard of it. I'd never used a dating app. Dating apps were stigmatized back then. It was kind of seen as a last resort, or you were a little bit desperate to be on a dating app. This is like 10
Yeah,
years
like it
ago.
wasn't cool.
No, people were getting married to people they'd met on dating apps and not saying that they'd met on a dating app because
Yeah.
they didn't want that to be their
Yeah.
story. So it was just really different times. And when you have a startup and it's maybe not the biggest, baddest thing just yet, you don't really have your pick of the litter in terms of who you can hire, to be honest. So it just ended up working out. I like quit my job the day that Whitney offered me the job. Following my gut in my career started at that moment because I remember how the first phone call I had with Whitney when she was explaining Bumble to me and her vision for Bumble. I had this voice screaming at me internally, literally saying, "This is going to change your life. This is going to be huge." And I just felt very deeply in my core, I
Wow.
must do it. And then it really did change my life. And so I guess it was my first lesson in really listening to that voice from within. But that doesn't mean I didn't have moments of doubt. Like as I was working out my notice period, uh, starting to get ready to launch this tech company into Australia, I had these moments where I was thinking, I've got to pull out of this. There's no way I can do this. I have no idea where to start. I've never been to a cool event. I don't know what a PR agency is. I have no idea how to market anything. I don't know if this woman's ever going to pay me. Like I still went through this process of having to really manage my mindset. And I remember thinking, better to try and fail than to not try it all. And I can go back to HR if I need to. I may as well just give it a shot.
I think it's so interesting that thank you for sharing all of that because I think it's really relatable. But also, I think that it takes a lot of bravery to be able to take a chance on that voice. I think we all have that voice. I think it takes a lot of self-empowering. Do you think that you've always been empowered to achieve? Like, where did that confidence to like take the leap come from? Like, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sydney, in Australia, on the northern beaches. I honestly had a pretty normal upbringing, I would say. I've got two younger sisters, eldest of three girls. Spent my
I'm an eldest daughter too.
Really, I think there is that eldest daughter like complex.
Totally.
Yeah. And it is that thing where I don't know if it's if it's more of a subconscious thing, but you are raised in a way to set a good example for your younger sisters.
Totally.
So
Well, my parents were both like very entrepreneurial and like very achievement oriented. So I think I like saw that too.
that's the same as me. My parents were both elite athletes and they'd
Wow.
been really great at what they had done. And I do think something happens to you, and it's a good thing. Like my dad has an Olympic medal, and so growing up with an Olympic medal in the house,
Raises the bar.
it also makes it seem really accessible. It
Mm.
makes doing something at an extremely high level and being the best of the best feel like you can do it too. If it's just sitting
Yeah.
there right in front of you.
No, totally. I think it comes with pros and cons, right? Like everything kind of does. And
Mm,
for people who are like high achieving and grew up in households where parents were like this, I think to your point, like it definitely lowers self-doubt. It doesn't get rid of it, obviously,
yeah.
because like we're human, but I think it shows you what's possible. Like, especially if you see like a parent start at the bottom and then like build, and then in your case, like hit the highest level in their career, you're like,
Mm,
wow, I can do that too.
yeah.
But I think it also wires you to find worth in it as well. Do you feel that way?
Oh, 100%. Like my self-worth has always been very tied to achievement or doing something well.
Yeah.
And I've always channeled this competitive spirit into something, be that sport or my career or, trying to build a business or sell a business or reach a certain goal.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good or a bad
I was
thing.
actually going to ask you because you unapologetically said in an interview I read that like your self-worth is tied to ambition. Like you just
Mm,
owned it.
Mm.
You've obviously are in a place now, like as you've gotten older, I can imagine like you've refined this. Like, where does that boundary lie? Like, were there moments in your career where you took it too far and you realized that you were attaching your worth too much to achievement? And like, how have you used it to your advantage now? Because I don't think it ever goes away.
It's hard because at Bumble, I did start to feel like my identity was very heavily ingrained in the brand. Like it kind of became just attached to me, like this Bumble girl in Australia. And once I left Bumble, I started to realize that might have been a bit unhealthy. Like I was just relentlessly focused on growing this company day in and day out. And I kind of took no prisoners and like left people in my wake,
Yeah.
like I just
Well, it
really
sounds like you were really passionate about it. Do you think you like found your purpose there?
definitely. It's what showed me how it can feel when you like absolutely live and breathe what you're doing when Monday doesn't feel like Monday. You actually don't know what day of the week it is because you're not desperate to reach the weekend to have a
Yeah.
break and switch off. And I've seen people speak about this with work-life balance and how burnout, for example. I've
Yeah.
heard some really iconic founders talk about the fact that you don't experience burnout when you are continually growing and achieving and there is momentum and it's always this upward direction. Whereas when you reach a place of a plateau or things stagnate, that's when burnout can really
Mm.
come up. And look, I don't know if that is right or wrong and if someone who's an expert in like the nervous system would agree with that. And I think, it's not necessarily black and white, but I felt like I was able to work so hard because there was so much momentum, there was so much growth, and I also was working in a team.
I don't think all the time it's bad to attach some worth to what you're doing. I think we hear a lot that like your self-worth shouldn't be tied to your achievements. And I think that's to an extent, but like what is life if you're not like proud of what you're doing each day? A lot of my worth is tied to like the value I offer the world and like what I'm bringing. And I can imagine like that's how you felt too.
Mm, I did. And I think this becomes complex sometimes when we speak about hustle culture and the toxicity of the girl boss era. It can also shame people in a way who are really ambitious and who are just guns blazing in their career. Like they're a slave to hustle culture
Yeah.
if that's their number one priority at that point in their life. I guess as I've gotten older, what I have noticed is everything is a season. Like you have seasons of your life where you are just 100% firing on the career funnel because you can, because maybe you haven't started a family yet or you're single and you just want to embrace this
Yeah.
era of your life. And then you might transition out of that and realize, okay, now I also want to run a marathon or start a family. I think things just ebb and flow. There is no right or wrong way. I think it's just about how it makes you feel and if it's fulfilling and if you are gaining things from it or if it's really draining you and, unhealthy for the other areas of your life.
Yeah, I think it's about intention, like, I think and being honest with yourself, and I think being honest with yourself and, like, taking risks, all of it takes bravery too, like, being able to maneuver through your career, but also be honest about, like, the way you're, like, working and running in that career.
Totally. And all the jobs I've had since I entered the tech industry, they have always been really purpose driven. So there is so much meaning in what I'm showing up for and working on each day. Like
Yeah.
at Bumble, it was all about changing the gender roles. And if we could get women to make the first move on our product, maybe we could also get women to make the first move in their real life as well. And maybe they put their hand up for the promotion or they put their hand up for the pay rise.
Yeah.
Now I'm working at the world's largest online community for mums. So I'm sitting around thinking all day, not really sitting around, but I'm thinking, I'm
In the
thinking,
middle of the night, you're thinking and
yeah,
wake.
yeah. But I'm just constantly thinking about how I can make things better for
Mm.
mums. So there's so much purpose in the work as well, which definitely makes it easier to show up and want to work hard and, you're actually bettering people's lives with what you're putting out into the world as well.
Totally. Do you think you always, because that's kind of the through line, right? From all, and I know you're going to get into like the different levels and areas of your career, but the through line is women for you.
Hmm.
Were you always like, I mean, obviously, besides the fact that you are a woman, but like, were you always so passionate about women and like creating products and companies around women and uplifting women?
It definitely was at Bumble. And I think initially it came from the fact that I did not know where to start. Like, I didn't actually know how to do my job because I'd never done marketing or, started a company. At Bumble, it was basically a crash course in running a business with no financial risk for me because
Yeah.
Bumble was already established and I could grow this thing in the ways that I wanted in Australia, learning from what they'd already proven out in the US. And because I didn't really know where to begin, I just looked inward. Okay, I know that they want to get women like me on this platform. What are the brands I love? Who are the people I love? What are the calendar moments that get me and my friends out of the house? What events would we show up for? And so I found it easy in a way to market a product to a demographic that I was in.
Yeah.
Like when you are the consumer and you are the target audience, it answers a lot of questions just innately within you. But then I also worked out something about myself in that I really like things that are a little bit controversial. And I loved going out and being in bars and almost arguing with men about why women should make the first move and about why Bumble is so important and starting to, I guess, step more into like the different waves of feminism and Bumble really came to be in the Me Too movement. And so that really fueled me as well, like being able to lead conversations that might be polarizing in ways that attracted people to our product and the right sorts of people. So,
So cool. I feel like people are really scared to have controversial conversations now, which is unfortunate because I do think it like creates space for us all to like learn and hear different sides. And I do think it's fun. I obviously don't like arguing, but I do love to like talk and sit down with someone that I completely disagree with.
yes.
And it's interesting, and you can learn so much about your own perspective when you have conversations like that and you kind of flex that muscle. And I think it makes you question internally, like why you believe what you believe.
100%, especially when someone disagrees with you,
Yeah.
because that was then like the fire inside me when I started my own company, which was in more of a provocative, controversial space.
Yes,
It,
please tell people about what it
yeah.
is too.
Yeah. So after Bumble, I started my own company called Sunroom, which I sold last year, and it was a creator economy platform. So, like a blend between Instagram and OnlyFans, creators could come onto it, post their content behind a paywall, and use Sunroom as a revenue channel. And we sat in the space between Instagram and OnlyFans. So wasn't for hardcore content, but it was for more softcore content. So we were hearing from a bunch of women creators that they were being censored for showing too much skin or for being plus size or for being of color or for speaking about sex or
Wow.
birth. And so we built an app which was moderated by real humans so that we could look at every single piece of content and assess the context of that. And so we wouldn't censor people for nudity and sexuality when it's not sexual just to
Yeah.
have
Well,
boobs.
it's so interesting you bring this up too, because I think like people don't think about birth, even breastfeeding. I know you
Yeah.
breastfed in the Hot Smart Rich podcast. Like people don't think about that stuff as something that gets censored.
Yep, so censored. And that does not help women at all. Doesn't help women's health, doesn't help women feel seen, doesn't help women feel understood. The fact that so many creators on TikTok, are having to spell sex,
Yeah, with the asterisk.
SEGG, like segs, to just get out there. Or from the moment you are in more of a sex positive space, you'll be shadow banned.
Hmm.
We just had my co-founder and I had a huge problem with that. And so we started Sunroom and we patented this anti-screenshot technology so that when creators posted on our platform, nothing could be screenshot or screen recorded and then
Wow.
spread without people actually paying for it. It was met with a lot of uh
You
like
could never do that.
yeah, don't do that. You'll never be on a board. This will ruin your reputation. Why would you step into this space? And it was just any association or comparison to the OnlyFans space, the stigma was just pulling through into what we were trying to achieve as well. But that is what made me want to do it even more, because I felt like, okay, if I can craft a brand around this that is people understand it, it's not as scary, it's not as jarring. There's more conversation around it. Maybe we can also destigmatize the OnlyFans space as well, because women really shouldn't be judged or shamed for putting a price on their beauty and their body. Like, women have so much more power in that way than men, but we have just been shamed. You know, it's always a woman that is judged for sleeping her way to the top, but
No,
the man
totally.
in the office can be having sex with everyone and no one will bat an eyelid.
No, totally. And it's interesting. Like the thing that is coming up for me as you're like sharing all of this story too is the fact that like you started at a bank. And like the cool thing about it though is that like it seems like you found your purpose and the thing that like lights you up and like this mission through taking risks. And I think that's like really inspiring for people to listen to, because people are so paralyzed by fear, yet they're so unfulfilled by the fact that they don't know their purpose. Do you
Mm.
think you were always just like confident in that way? I know you said you grew up with like, house of like athletes, an Olympic dad, but like where did this confidence come from to like take big swings so that you could get to this place where like I can just tell from like being with you too, like energetically, like you're so satisfied in like the work that you're doing, whether it was at Bumble or the app and now what you're doing at Peanut.
Yeah. No, I actually am. Like, I am so satisfied with what I've done. And I guess I have always kind of gone where my heart has desired, and I focused on things that are near and dear to me. And as my career has evolved, it's almost followed the path of my own life, you know,
Yeah.
being 25 and having been single and dated, and it slotted quite nicely into Bumble. And then after Bumble, it was 2020 and OnlyFans was blowing up. It was the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
sex workers, everything changed for them through that period. And that's what really catapulted OnlyFans. But people were also starting to talk about the creator economy, and becoming a creator was being seen as legitimate work. And so it was just this natural next
Yeah.
progression. And then to Peanut, once I became a mum, I guess in terms of following my gut and my heart, motherhood really does change a lot, and it forces you to get even more real with yourself. And I think if you haven't found your passion before becoming a mum, motherhood would be the sort of thing that would also really draw it out of you, because your tolerance levels just
Yeah.
shrink.
You don't have a lot of time, a free time.
Yeah, and if you're working, you really do want to be doing anything you can in your power to make sure it's fulfilling work, because it just
Yeah.
makes it a hell of a lot easier. Peanut honestly just felt too good to be true when that came my way. The founder of Peanut invested in Sunroom, and so she knew that
So
we were
cool.
selling it, and that's what led to this conversation. But people always ask me about my confidence, because I also maybe like present in a way where I seem really sure of myself and quite confident, but I still do have moments where I get imposter syndrome, or I've taken the initial jump and I've like backed myself initially, and then I'm actually in it, realizing, wow, okay, this is yet again another steep learning
Yeah.
curve for me. But even if I don't necessarily believe in myself, I will be saying things internally like, "No, you've got this, you'll figure it out, you always do." I
Yeah.
think everyone would be able to say that to themselves. Like, you always make it through. There's always a way out. There's always a way to make something happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say that like imposter syndrome is like no one is exempt. Like it's a human condition. And I think it's just
Yeah.
about like, are you going to move through it or not? And I think some people get paralyzed and some don't. And I think lucky for people like us, like we don't think before we make decisions. I mean, we do, but like I can make a decision very quickly. And then to your point, like I'll be in it. I'm like, how am I going to do this? And then I'm like, it'll be fine. It always is fine. And I think
Yeah.
you build a tolerance for that over time. But I do think like imposter syndrome is always like rooted in some type of different wound for everyone. Do you
Mm.
think that like I always say entrepreneurship is like the biggest mental health journey, or like if you haven't like worked through your shit, like it will pop up? What do you
Mm.
think came up for you after you left Bumble and like went into the entrepreneurial route?
Okay. I definitely, like, my little inner self-doubt voice with Bumble was like, "Oh, was that all a fluke?" were you just right place, right time? It could have been any
Mm.
other girl. You were lucky.
Even the
Uh,
way you talk about it now still, like in the beginning, you were like, well, she didn't have a lot of options.
That's the Australian in me as well, though, because we are, it's embedded in us to like play our success down.
Like, be humble. Very
Yeah,
humble.
yeah, because Australians like everyone to be on a level playing field. So you don't want to,
Gotcha.
yeah, we Australians don't like arrogance.
Well,
Whereas Americans,
I feel like we're also trained as women though to be very like, I don't want to like
yeah,
act like I'm too good. I don't want, because I've noticed even like when I'm talking about like success, I'll be like, I'll always like caveat it by like, I'm not trying to be not humble, but
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's exactly that. Even the fact that I just said arrogance when I shouldn't view it as
yeah,
arrogant to literally speak the facts about
yeah,
what you did.
yeah,
Yeah, I had those rumblings of self-doubt. Like maybe I have now developed this personal brand that makes me appear way better than I actually am. That's like the
mm,
inner conflict that I have. And I always try to work through that by just literally looking at the data and looking at the results and celebrating the small wins. And I do think there's always a bit of luck in every person's success, because I look at Bumble, for example, and that was just the perfect storm. Like it came about at a time where the girl boss era was on the rise, the Me Too movement, Believe Women, much more opportunity for women in their career. And that brand really embraced that moment
yeah.
of time and spoke to women in a way that other brands were not.
Yeah, I would push back at you though a little bit and say that like a lot of people do have moments of luck and they don't step into it. Like I actually
Hmm.
think like we've as a society, as we like are human and like are gonna feel feelings of self-doubt and imposter syndrome, kind of convince ourselves that like certain people get luckier than others. And of course there's privilege, but I do think that like we all have moments of luck if we're looking for them. And I think at that time, like it sounds like your inner knowing was like, I'm not happy here. Like, I'm not going to be good. Like, if I don't. And I think you just were listening and maybe you
Yeah.
like took the jump.
Yeah, I do totally agree with that as well, that opportunities are also everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just if you've got your eyes open. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think we are stuck, or we have to take the traditional route, or it would be a bad time. And then it's like you just open your eyes, have one conversation, start being honest about something, apply for one job. Like it can really all just
Yeah.
begin from that moment of, it sounds so cliche, but just taking the first step. I've found it is actually simple in a way to get
Hmm.
yourself out of a situation that's not
Annoyingly
fulfilling.
simple
Yes,
because it's
it's
not easy.
yes, exactly. It's just the hard part is being honest with yourself as well. Like I think it can be scary to recognize, oh my God, I studied this for 5 years and I got the job, but I'm actually not happy now. I'm here. And I think sometimes it can feel daunting to make a change. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
like leaving a bad relationship, you know?
Yeah. I think it's about like trusting your intuition too, or actually being able to identify the voice of your intuition. I know for me, like part of that was, I think, watching like someone else like be successful and kind of go through the ups and downs. Like my dad like was at the very bottom, worked like so hard for so long and is now more at the top. Growing up and seeing that and being a part of it and seeing like the rockiness, I didn't have like a false expectation of like what it was supposed to look like. And I think
Mm,
sometimes people are like, oh, well, that person's so successful. They must have had no bumps, no doubt, no imposter syndrome, and like all the qualifications. When in
mm.
reality, like we're all just kind of like here. And it's like your choice if you want to like jump into something unknown or not.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think one thing that helped me with my confidence at Bumble was Whitney, to be honest. Like she kind of, I was in this container of being allowed to throw something at the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
And failure was embraced. And I think that really helped me hone into my intuition and actually always listen to it. And I think it's easier to hear when it's screaming at you, you just like
Yeah.
innately know, like it's in your body, like you get goosebumps. That's something I always look out for. Am I having a conversation with someone about an opportunity that's giving me goosebumps? That's usually my sign.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to give this more thought. Like I want to keep having these conversations. But then there is the intuition and the voice that's not as loud. And it's like in the back of your head and it's an afterthought where you're like, not so sure. It's almost easier to just keep going and not challenge it. And so I really try to listen to like the little background thoughts
Yeah.
that are questioning something that I might not have time to fully interrogate in the moment. I like try to come back to it later and really think through
Yeah.
how do I actually feel about
And
this?
again, I think it goes back to like bravery, and bravery doesn't always look like jumping sometimes, even though I think it does take bravery to jump and take risks. Sometimes it takes bravery to like be self-aware enough and like pay attention enough to the voices in your head. Because we
Mm.
all have like all these different parts. And I just did an episode recently with someone on like parts work and like, the
Ah,
inner child and all of that.
yeah.
But I kind of like feel like, we all have this deep knowing. And to your point, like sometimes it's drowned out by like the voices of self-doubt or like the wound from childhood or the parent that didn't believe in us or whatever it can be. And I think
Mm,
you have to start to refine your skill when it comes to being able to navigate what voice is which.
mm. Such an interesting point you made because I was speaking to a friend the other day about just parental relationships. It does make such a difference when you grow up in a household where your parents believe in you
Yeah.
and support you and are cheering you on and allow you to explore the things that are of interest to you.
Yeah.
I think that helps with self-esteem and confidence. And
Yeah.
then when you get to a hard moment, your inner voice is able to override it because you've been brought up that way where
Yeah. Yeah. I think in my case, like entrepreneurship was always like a great model, but the emotional stuff was not so much. I grew up in like a very chaotic household, but I do
mm,
think that like the deep rooted sense of like you can do anything is probably like one of the biggest blessings of my life, because even though the emotional stuff maybe was a struggle, like there was still always a rooted belief that I can do anything.
mm,
And so even when it came to like my own healing and mental health, there's still that like I can do anything and I can like overcome this and I'm meant for more. And I do think there's a privilege in that. And I think
yeah.
if you didn't have that, there's ways to step in and embody it. And to your point, I think it's just like jumping and continuing to look at the timeline over and over when like the human stuff pops up, like imposter syndrome and self doubt.
Yeah. There's actually this amazing exercise because I think if you've got the self-confidence, you almost do this naturally. But there is a Tim Ferriss exercise around decision making. Do you know it?
No.
It's 4 different questions, and I'm really hoping I can remember them. The first question you ask yourself is, what if? So, what if I start this and it fails and I lose my visa? What if I start this and I burn through all my cash? So, you write down all the worst things. The second question is prevent. So, you've got all the what ifs down one side. Now you go into prevention. Like, okay, if this fails and I lose my visa, I can't live in the US anymore. I'll just go back home and I could temporarily live with my parents for a bit.
Yeah.
Sure, a hit to the ego, but it's there. Or
Yeah.
maybe I like move in with a friend or another family member.
Yeah. Like you
O-
won't be on the street.
yeah. Or, okay, I might burn through all my cash. How much cash do I actually have in the bank? And let's make sensible decisions here. The third question is my favorite, and it is, what would partial success look like? A lot of the time, the reason why people feel like they can't take the leap, or maybe they aren't going to be as bold as they have the potential to, is because they're thinking about like big headline, huge
Yeah.
success, huge dollars, like taking it all the way to the top. But actually, what would partial success look like? And I think that is a much more interesting question because even when I came to the end of the road with my own company and selling it, it looked so different to how I had imagined selling a company would look. And it just offered so much more perspective around the journey of entrepreneurship and how much I'd learnt and how much additional like capital I'd added to myself, like knowing I
Yeah.
could kind of go anywhere and command certain things. And just, yeah, it's such an X factor, I think, as well, to be able to show that you have taken risk or you've tried something. In the times when I've been hiring people, I always go for people that have just given something a crack, and I don't really care how,
Yeah.
if they won the race or if they didn't. It's just
Yeah.
that they tried. And then the fourth question is looking at, what would my life look like if I didn't do this? And looking at your life 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, How would my finances look? How would my health look? Am I going to be drinking every night because I don't really like my job?
Yeah.
Am I going to be counting down the clock every day, waiting for the moment I can leave my desk because I don't really like how this place feels? And I think that is just such a good exercise if you want to be a bit more like methodical about working through it and actually get it down on a piece of paper, because that's the way my brain has gone most of the times I've taken the jump, is also looking at things like, will this opportunity be there for me 5 years from now? I feel like there's always like a fallback plan that you could go to that will
Yeah.
most of the time always be there for you, but maybe the business opportunity won't be there, or the economy will be different, or that industry might have
Yeah.
moved on, or this might not fit in nicely with my life.
Yeah, or like what will like haunt you? Like, will it keep
Yes.
haunting you?
Yeah.
We keep ourselves in boxes like a lot of times. And I think we project that it's like the world putting us in boxes, but really I think it's like our own fear and like
Mm.
the boundaries we're putting on our own capabilities. You don't like have that really. Like I feel like you look at it looks at least from your story, and I don't know the ins and outs of it obviously, but like I think you didn't keep yourself in boxes. Like you let your passion and your purpose like lead you through. Do you think in the moment that was, like, conscious, or do you think you kinda just, like, went where the wind blowed and, like, trusted your gut?
I think it was the latter, and I did, like, I really do trust myself. I think I've also done things that many other people in my position might not do. Like, I left Bumble when it was just on the up, right
Mhm.
before it was about to IPO, but I wanted to leave that company when I still absolutely loved it. It was just like the experience of a lifetime, and I could kind of see that things were starting to change and it was going to become more corporate, and that startup magic was beginning to move away from it, which is what's meant to happen. You're
Yeah.
meant to get a company to that point.
Well, you
But
know yourself well, it sounds like, and you know that you, like, thrive in the beginning, the
yes,
controversial era of a
yes,
company.
that is my spot. Like, I think you've got people that can take a company from like 0 to 10 million, and then 10 million to 100 million, 100 million beyond, whatever it is. And I know I am good in the scrappy, no rules, needing to experiment, being okay with like taking a hit and then getting back up. And I suppose it served me well because I've been able to like achieve as I've done that.
Yeah.
But I had this saying that I always like lived by when I was in high school, that a friend of mine's dad actually said, and it was, leave the party while you're still having fun.
Oh, I
And
love
I
that.
I think it's great advice to give to a daughter, or to anyone, to be honest, but I have just carried that with me wherever I've gone. I don't like staying in places where it doesn't feel fun anymore, or my feelings or attitude towards the place are going to become negative.
And maybe it's because you started in corporate too. And like you were
Mm.
like, if I was just gonna be miserable, I'd go back to that job. Like I think there's something to be said about the fact that you're like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. That's how I was feeling. Like you have like a touch point, I think, of like what that feels like to not be like fulfilled by something anymore or know that it's time to move on.
Yeah. I don't think I would be very good at my job if I didn't fucking love it.
Yeah.
I would completely disassociate, and I think it would bring me down
Yeah.
energetically in
Yeah.
all areas of my life.
You're obviously like very accomplished. I know if you won't admit it, I will proudly say it since I'm not Australian. But you've done so much and you're obviously, like we said, like a very high achiever. And now you have two kids, one who you just said is two, and
Yeah.
then seven, what did you say? Seven
Nearly
months?
7 months,
The other
yeah.
one? It's crazy. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of women believe that they can't have both. They can't have the best
Mm.
of both worlds. You said on another podcast that the stat is what, 86% of women that say that motherhood will jeopardize their career. They believe that motherhood will jeopardize their career. Was that like a mental health moment for you? How did your belief in pursuing motherhood kind of evolve?
That's a really good way to put it, actually, a mental health moment, because I knew I wanted to be a mum, but I was one of the 80+% of people that felt like it would not be a good thing for my career. And then I found myself pregnant when I was 32, I think. I fell pregnant, and I felt like, you know what, this is something I want. So it's probably time for me to figure out why I have felt the way that I do. And I went on this huge unlearning journey. Like I did a lot of journaling, wrote lots of essays, and I realized that through my career, I had witnessed things and internalized a lot. Like when I worked in the bank, I heard people say, we lose all the women before they become VP because they go off and have kids. I heard someone say, she's too emotional, she should take parental leave now. I had someone ask me for advice once on taking a woman's promotion back once they'd found out that she was
Ugh.
pregnant. So I'd seen these things, and I'm sure so many other women have seen that too. And so that sends a message to you that that's not a good idea. You know, this isn't
Yeah.
gonna be good for your career. And then I hadn't really reassessed that feeling in years. I just held on to it. Things had changed. You know, I'd gone into startups. I'd been working for brands that care about women. I now had my own company. And so I had to almost do the Tim Ferriss thing where it was like, okay, what are all the things I'm really worried about here? And what is the actual reality of where I'm at now? And when I was pregnant, I had my own company. We'd raised a lot of money. I had a lot of investors. I had employees. And I had feelings of, will my investors worry about my level of commitment? You know, will my team, is this going to rub people up the wrong way, essentially? And then I worked through it and was like, I have started a company that is women founded about making women money on the internet. I shouldn't have anyone on my cap table who would feel that way towards
Yeah.
me. And if I do, like, that's a problem. And if I've built a business that can't survive with me taking some time off to have my baby, then maybe I haven't built a business that's that good. You know, like these are all things I should be able to work through. I did just go on this big process of realizing I can actually have both of these things at the same time. I'm in the perfect spot for this. It is my own company. There are pros and cons of that. And yeah, I ended up becoming a mom, and I then became a mum again. And honestly, it's this ongoing journey because I felt like I'd worked through so much the first time round, but then the second time round, things come up again
Yeah.
where your programming, your conditioning starts to
Yeah.
step in, and you again question your ability and your worth. And you have moments sometimes where you f- you feel like maybe you have to pretend you're not also a mum, and you have to show up like you didn't just birth a whole human. And that's why I'm really passionate about this space, because it's not necessarily a matter of can women do both, because yes, women can do both. It's the system that we exist in. It's the fact that women still are penalized for taking time out to have babies. It's the
Yeah.
fact that, you know, childcare is beyond expensive and often at times not even accessible. It's no paid parental leave in this country. Like these things all make doing both at the same time much harder. And we just don't really live in a world that has evolved at the same rates women's needs
Yeah.
have. And so it's not necessarily like a black and white. And that's what makes it scary. And that's what makes it hard to navigate, because you really have to go off the environment and the workplace that you're in and try to get a read on, is this workplace going to support and celebrate me, or do they look at motherhood as a setback or
Yeah.
like it's a threat to productivity,
Yeah.
when it's definitely not in the right environment.
Well, and like having the courage to like rewire your thoughts and limiting beliefs around it too. Like we talk a lot about like limiting beliefs and rewiring the brain when it comes to
Mm,
healing, but people don't view like these things. I think we accept a lot of times like the things we've been taught or the things we hear, or we maybe don't even realize like the limiting beliefs that like came from the systems we're in or the families we grew up in. And I think it takes, again, like bravery to be curious about like why we believe what we believe. And I think putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, talking to people that don't agree with you, I think brings that stuff up. And I think that's why it's so important to like
mm,
have those conversations and actually move out of places of uncomfortability, because I think it can lead you to new passions and new places of work. And it sounds like that's what happened with you with the work, like your work career. The common thread is that like you were able to investigate in the things that popped up in your life and it led you to like a new door.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'd never actually thought about this before, but when I announced that I was pregnant the first time, I felt like I needed to speak a lot about what that journey had felt like because people were following me online for my career and I knew they like looked up to me in that way. And becoming a mum had been a bit of an interesting ride for me. Like to be completely transparent, I've had two abortions with my current partner, who I now have two kids with. So fallen pregnant with the person I knew I wanted to have kids with previously.
Mm,
Uh, but I just didn't feel like it would be the right time for my career. And I didn't interrogate those inner beliefs in that moment because I had more time. You know,
yeah.
I was 20, like 28 at that time. And I didn't feel the pressure of the biological clock. So I just was like, nah, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I moved on. And then it was when I was 32, I was like, okay, I actually do really want this. It's time to unpack this even more. And so I felt like I needed to tell this story. And it can be really hard to speak about these things because so many women so desperately want to have a family, and
Of
we all
course.
go through different fertility
Yeah.
journeys. And so I know it can be quite triggering for people to hear conversations about this as well, but it's important to have them in considered ways because there are so many women struggling with like the if, when, and how, and so many women proactively delaying starting a family for whatever reason. And everyone's journey will be different based on their life, career, finances, relationships. Like we can't dictate when the right time will be
Yeah.
for anyone. I think we just need to be having honest conversations about how hard it can be to know when the right time is. When, yeah, you do have like the biological clock, which I hate to say it, but it's
Yeah.
there. And then you do have your career and you do have your relationships and you do have where you live. Like it is just such a big decision.
And there's no safe space to like talk about it. Or I know that's what you're working on
Yeah,
now, but like there's no safe space and there's so much judgment.
there's
eh,
so much
So
judgment.
much judgment and it perpetuates because we're judged so much. I think women innately judge outwardly
Yeah,
as well
yeah,
of each other, of everything. And I think that's why it's also hard to talk about these things because you're going to get judgment, especially when you're in the public eye.
yeah, yeah. That's completely it. And I ended up writing this big essay that's on my Instagram that then like a few media publications picked up as well. And I just honestly had like so many people reach out to me saying thank you. And I felt like it really would have helped me to see someone speak about how challenging it is to decide if, when, and how when you have been so focused on your career and your whole self worth is tied into it and it becomes a part of your identity. And yeah, we can feel like it's maybe trivial or something to say that it's career that's deciding it, but it's just the reality for so many of us. And I
Mhm.
guess, to be honest, it was probably that moment that made me transition a little bit with my own content into being very open about how I was finding things and just starting to think a lot more about what, yeah, like the journey is like for other women. And so it kind of naturally then led me to Peanut, which is honestly probably I want to say I want to say the only space, but I'll say one of the only spaces where this kind of conversation is going down all the time because
Yeah.
you do need areas of the internet that are kind of cornered off for this, which Peanut is. Like it's full of only women, 6 million women
Wow.
talking about honestly the journey of becoming a mother and fertility into pregnancy, into birth, into postpartum. It's a really like complex, intense, beautiful space to come into once you're ready for it, but it can also be like shocking and surprising. And so that's why I'm just really passionate about what we do at Peanut, because it honestly is a lifeline for so many people that use it.
Well, and it's a reflection of like your own healing, it sounds like too.
Yeah, it is. And it is like I use it as a consumer. I was a user of the product before I was an employee, and it really
Cool.
helped me through my first pregnancy. And it was how I made my first mum friend. But honestly, to this day, I'm going in there and I'm searching, because sometimes you'll just have those inner thoughts, or the things you don't really want to say out loud, or the things you don't even feel comfortable dropping in your mum group chat, that I will just like search on the app.
The mom group chat.
Yeah, to see, okay, well, I can be invisible over here.
Yeah.
How are people talking about this on Peanut? Like, it's very raw and unfiltered, but
So
it's the
cool.
reality.
Yeah.
And we often don't get that on social media.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it was hard for even me to, like, there's a certain degree at which I will share on social media, because it is really judgmental and it's often extremes, and there's not a lot of space for nuance on social media. People
Yeah.
don't really give creators or anyone like the benefit of the doubt. They'll just see one thing and like think that is all.
Well, and it adds to like the voices we were talking about earlier. Like it's not always easy to hear the voice of your intuition. And like you already have to fight off like the four voices that are telling you you can't do it or that your career is going to be
Yeah.
ruined or whatever. And so it makes it a lot more complicated when other people are contributing to those voices as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then people can start like self censoring, and then you're not being authentic.
Yeah.
So,
And then
yeah.
depression and anxiety. It's
Yeah.
like, no, it's like it's a train wreck
Yeah.
effect.
Sometimes I will like suss things out on Peanut as like my little,
Yeah.
I'll just drop something in and see what the response is like. And it'll almost like give me the confidence to then go and have that
Yeah.
conversation.
It's so interesting as you were talking, I was thinking about how like all of the like limiting beliefs we have around like ourselves as women, whether it's motherhood, whether it's like what we can wear, whether it's what we post, like
What we can say.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of it. But it's so funny because like we push through that as entrepreneurs all the time. And for like people who are high achieving, which I would imagine a lot of people listening and myself included who are like scared in that 80 something percentile of like starting a family. It's interesting how we don't view it the same as like we would
Oh,
entrepreneurship.
I have this inner conversation with myself all the time, because I also, when I became a mum, really fought hard against changing. I was like, nah, I'm the same me. I'll take 4 weeks off. I'll go straight back into my business. I'll act
Yeah.
like I'm good. You know, speak to me how
Yeah.
you used to. Don't change, because of
Yeah.
me. I'm not changing. Like, there was strength in doing that. And it took me like a year to figure out, actually, no, there is so much more strength in evolving, in expanding, in this process of becoming a mother. You're so powerful on the other side. And I think society, even when we hear things like bounce back, it almost makes you feel like you have to bounce back, not even physically, but like emotionally,
Yeah. Like
mentally.
quick.
Yeah, like you're just meant to go back to who you were, but there is no going back. Like, did you see the campaign we ran at Peanut about the word matrescence?
No.
Have you ever heard that
No.
word? Yeah, I actually dropped it as like a hint on the Hot Smart Rich podcast as well, because we were coming
Love.
up with this campaign and I wanted to test, like, do people know this word? And most people have never heard this word, and it is literally defined as the process of becoming a mother. It's the physical, psychological, social, and emotional process a woman goes through. And it's literally a rewiring of your brain, to the extent that when they do brain scans on older women, they can see who is a mum and who isn't.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because of how much our brains change in matrescence. It's literally like adolescence, but you go through it when you become a mum. And the whole world has heard the word adolescence, but no one really has heard the word matrescence. And we surveyed all the women on Peanut and asked, have you heard the word matrescence? And 67% of them said no. And those are women who've literally gone through it. So
And who are on like an
mothers,
all motherhood app. So they're like
yes,
going to be more educated in
yes.
things mother.
So the percentage of the everyday population would be like astronomically higher. And it's crazy, because once you discover this word and you're a mum, you're like, holy fuck, are you kidding? Like, there is a word to describe what I have just been through. This makes me feel so much less crazy, so much more normal. Like, matrescence changes how we respond to social cues, infant cues, makes us more
Wow.
empathetic, makes us more efficient. Like it is a rewiring of the brain. And I think once you know that, you realize like, wow, this is actually so powerful. It's meant to happen. It's making me the best mum I can be. I'm going to be fundamentally different, but I'm actually meant to be. And it's more like, okay, what parts of me am I taking with me and what parts like no longer
Yeah.
serve me and I don't really need them because I'm like making room for myself with my like new matrescence, post-matrescence
Isn't
brain.
it crazy? Like, I feel like there's so many things that I've recently learned about myself, like around like the woman's body and cycles that I didn't
Women's
know.
health.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like unapologetically gonna admit, like, I barely even know like all the phases of like the cycle because like they're not taught.
Do you know what? I don't know any of them because I had two back-to-back pregnancies, so I haven't had a period since 2023. And I feel like it's over the past 3 years that everyone has started to talk more about the parts of the cycle, but
Yeah.
I haven't had a period since then. So I don't know.
I feel out
I
of the
don't know
loop.
any of it.
I'm like, how did I not know any of this
Yes.
stuff? It's
But
crazy.
that's like how is the word for the irony? The word matrescence isn't in the dictionary. It's been around since the 1970s. It was coined by a female anthropologist. And there are so many books written about it. There's labs in America dedicated to studying it. But when you write the word matrescence on your phone, it has the red line under it and it's literally not in the dictionary. And I think that just shows as well where we place mothers in society, which also adds to the fear women have around becoming a mum because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, are people going to say I'm just a mum? Like there's something wrong with that? Am I going to become invisible? Am I going to become overlooked? The mental load, like how am I being supported through this? There's just so much like room for improvement
Well,
is an
yeah.
understatement.
And it transcends into like even like I mean, we could go on a whole rant about this, like even the way like men are evolving as well. Like something you said in an interview recently, you were like, if you're gonna have children, don't have an incompetent partner. I
Yeah.
loved that because
Yeah.
so it
You
rang very
need to
true.
be with a competent man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I do think that like again, like women are evolving, I think, at a very high rate. And like we don't need men anymore just for security. Like to our the whole point of the conversation, like women are starting companies. They are creating their own security.
Yeah.
And a lot of women are just looking for an emotional, supportive partner. And again, I think that that's stacked against men in a lot of ways too. And that could be
Mm,
like a whole separate conversation, but they're
mm.
not evolving as quick as women are in those ways. And again, I don't know if they're given like the space to, but
Yeah.
I do think that it's complicated now making a decision, not just because of the judgment, not just because of the fear of not being successful anymore, but also, am I going to have support?
100%. I think, yeah, that's my like top piece of advice, to be honest, is like starting a family, just knowing or ensuring that you're doing it with someone who is extremely caring and is there for you in the hard times and is going to be being a dad, not being a babysitter.
Yeah.
It's also tough because there are also so many bad men out there where I don't know. I'm like, can you try? You can't always trust them. Like they might appear that way and then you get there and things change.
I always say, and people always like laugh at me who are close to me and think I'm like jaded, and I definitely have trust issues, but I do think like trust is earned. It's not given out for free. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people give it out for free.
Yeah.
And I think when you live a little bit more in this space of like, no, like people need to prove to you, like you get to see incompetence very quickly.
Yeah,
So
that's
I feel
so
like I don't
interesting.
struggle as much with that,
Yeah.
but
You've
you
got an
know,
incompetence radar.
yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I do. I think I need to like let up on mine a little bit and like give people more
You
chances.
should actually do an episode on that though and teach
Honestly.
teach other women.
No, and I was gonna ask you too, like as someone who's been like, you've been in so many different roles, leadership roles in particular. You're a badass for sure. And you found a man, it seems, that is not intimidated by that. But also, like, I can imagine that like you've had to work on like leaning into like the feminine parts of yourself. Like,
Yeah.
was that something that came naturally to you? Or was there a moment where you were like, okay, like I need to like switch on and off masculine, feminine, not even deciding to have kids, but like deciding to have a partner is also
Mm.
a threat to ambition,
Yeah, that's such a interesting take. We were in a long distance relationship for the first like 4 years of our relationship,
which sounds
which
ideal.
Yes, which is the whole time I was at Bumble. And I do think it was quite ideal because we were both just super focused on our careers, both of us traveling a lot. It worked really well because neither one of us felt like we were waiting for the other. And I could just work late into the night and like constantly be on the go. And I had this security of a relationship and someone
Yeah.
there for me on the other side. But it's funny because I say, that worked really well. But it was kind of the moment that came to a head where I realized, oh, I've actually been focusing, like I've been neglecting this
Yeah.
relationship, to be
Mhm.
honest. And I need to be, yeah, like I can't keep going with that mindset. Like, especially once we stopped being in a long distance relationship, it's almost like our relationship had to begin again. It had to become something different. And
Yeah.
the way we communicated had to completely change. And the way we showed up for each other had to completely change. And I think that was a bit of a wake up call for me. I was bringing that like work energy into our
Yeah.
relationship as well. And I didn't need to. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes like again, like people have to prove to you that like you can bring your guard downs and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's our responsibility to eventually, because I think that's
Yeah.
like always been my thing in the past where I'm like, I don't trust that like people can handle it.
Yeah. Do you know what? It was actually this crystal healer woman that I loved in Australia who I used to go and see. And she gave me, I feel like it was like, I want to say it was like an amethyst or something. It was this stone.
That's my birthstone, actually. I'm gonna take it
Really?
as a sign what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Every day when I left work, she was like, you have to hold this stone and it is going to help you transition out of your masculine and more into your feminine. And it's, the trigger for you that you can be different now.
Yeah.
But I also think for me, like motherhood was a real undoing of that. Like it really exposes it does change you and it does like for me, I guess everyone's different. For me, I think it has brought more softness to who I am and how I show up. And it just brings a lot of perspective that I didn't have before. Like I still care so much about what I'm doing and I'm so focused on it and I give it all that I can within the hours I have allocated to,
Yeah.
do my job and then I go and be a mum. But motherhood really has helped ground me, I think.
Yeah, and it sounds like maybe like unwind some of that like toxic like ambition. How we were talking earlier about how you said like your worthiness does come from ambition, but like it's like kind of healthy now. I can
Yeah.
imagine it kind of like balanced you out a bit.
Yeah. And honestly, sometimes when I get really wound up or I'm stressing about something, I kind of just come back to the mission like, is this going to matter in 15 minutes, 5 days? Does this help the mothers on our platform or not?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think you can just get caught up sometimes on like vanity metrics or like
Yeah.
things that actually shouldn't be as deep as they might seem at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. You sold your tech company with your co-founder.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. So cool.
Thanks.
I can imagine that that was like the build up, the build up, the build up. I mean, it sounds like you were pretty like purpose driven the entire time, but I could imagine like after the sale, you're kind of like, I did it. And is there like a come down from that? Like, I feel like how have you grounded
Mm,
yourself like mentally
yeah.
through the like ups and downs of like you have a high at Bumble and then you like start your own company and then you have a high again.
Selling a company is so hard. Like I think I'd always felt like, okay, start a company, raise some money, grow it, sell it, you
Yeah.
know? Uh, and then it got to the part of selling it. And I think anyone who sold a company will have similar war stories of when like you think it's about to happen or something changes or someone leaves a company or like the terms aren't quite right or something is discovered. We were approached by a competitor to merge. It led my co-founder and I to have a conversation like, you know what? We're both ready for this, but
Yeah.
for different reasons. And so glad we were aligned on that because it would have been hard if one of us was ready and the other wasn't. And so we started an M&A process and ended up finding another company that was going to buy us. And we'd been working on the deal for probably 3 or 4 months, not that long. And then we discovered something that just ethically like didn't sit right with us. And so we had to pull out of the deal pretty close to it being done. And that was major whiplash because both of us had started to process this is coming
Yeah.
to an end. What are we going to do next? What does the outcome of this deal look like for us? What's it look like for our users? And then to have to completely go back to the drawing board, that was very, very challenging because we'd also stopped actively.
Like pitching it, sort
Yeah,
of.
because I felt strange going out to creators, getting them to join our platform and like it could
Yeah.
becoming part of something else in like, a month. So that was really, really hard on a motivational level because we'd both become really attached to the idea that it was over. But it was a blessing in disguise because in getting to the stage we had got to with this other company, we now really knew how to structure the deal. And so we could go back to other companies that had been like, maybe, but
Yeah.
maybe not, and really make it seem like a no brainer. And so we ended up selling to a company that was honestly, a better place, like the best place we could have gone to. But it ended up taking a year in total for us to run that process and complete it. And that was an extremely uncomfortable year because I was kind of trapped knowing that it was coming to an end, but I couldn't go anywhere. And so I honestly was mentally struggling. I also was pregnant.
You're
It
not in
was
control in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was like I don't think I was in a great place to the point where I was doing card pulls on ChatGPT most days. Like, give
Oh,
me something, give me a slither of hope.
you
Does
know it's
this
bad when you're like paying for the card readers to have like a FaceTime with you or you're doing
Yeah,
ChatGPT. I did
ChatGPT
that
card
like a
pulls.
year ago and I was like, what's wrong with me?
No,
Like, what is going
no,
on?
literally.
The mirror came up very quickly.
Yeah, I needed someone to tell me it was all going to work out because I'd also become really scared of the first round, it not actually happening. So I was finding it hard to believe, like don't count your chickens before they hatch. Like
Yeah.
this is not over until
Yeah.
it's over.
Well, isn't that like the fucked up thing about life too? Is like it's funny because we're like, I just wanted to know. I just wanted to know. And it's like we don't and we never
Yeah.
do. And I think like that's like the whole point, but it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple, but again, to our point, like simple but not easy.
Yeah.
It's accepting, I think, in those moments that like again, looking back at the timeline and being like, I'm gonna, learn what I need to, like in this
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. It was actually a real blessing again in disguise because I just had actually a lot of time. And so I spent a lot of time journaling, reflecting, considering what I would do next if I wanted to start another company, if I wanted to go into like a bigger tech company, if I wanted to consult, if I wanted to go into another startup. But I think it helped me get very clear on what I wanted to do next. And it led to the peanut outcome, which honestly just felt too good to be true. I was like, is this how it happens for me? Like I get to sell my company and then I get to go and help lead.
So cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's so
Thanks.
cool. Before
Thanks.
I let you go, I wanted to ask you because I think that's something really unique about your career is that like again, you went to university, went into like the bank job and like you got into like tech
Mm.
and selling a company and you're talking and using words that I'm not familiar with, like about like selling and like MCMA. Is that what you said? MC
M&A.
M&A, like
Yeah.
things like that. But you didn't learn that,
Yeah.
naturally. That's something that came with experience. I've always been the person that's not scared to be like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Do you
Yeah.
think you were the same?
That's absolutely how you need to be. And even if you don't feel confident asking internally, having an amazing network, like going to friends, being honest with friends, networking with people in adjacent spaces because you're probably dealing with the same sorts of challenges. Getting a career coach really helped me. Having investors actually really helped because it's like, what other brains can we bring
Yeah.
onto our team?
Well, because
All
I could
working.
imagine when you started at Bumble, you would never have probably guessed that you were going to like start an app and then sell
No, honestly, no.
it.
Even at the start, founding Sunroom, I was like, oh, I don't really know how to do this. I don't know how to raise money. But it sounds intimidating. Some of the best advice I got is want advice, ask for money. Want money, ask for advice. And so I I never actively sat down and was like, I'm going to start pitching some investors and try to get us money. I just found myself at a lunch talking about what I was working on, not realizing that it was an event I'd been invited to, not realizing who the woman was across the table from me who is a really successful founder who took a lot of interest in what I was talking about and ended up inviting me to come and like pitch to her.
Yeah.
And then she ended up offering us cash. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could
Do this
go and do
again.
this with other people. And so it was just like one test run, realizing, oh, okay, I could convince someone to give us money for this. Then I actually started going and pitching funds. And I think it was almost the naivety of me and the fact that I was still, polishing how we were going to speak about this. And I was just being really honest about where we were at and the insights that we had and the team that we were
Yeah.
going to build and what our go-to-market strategy was going to be, that people invest in the story and in the founder. And I think sometimes the naivety is actually such a strength. I think it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And again, like, I think I'm going to push back a little bit though and say, like, you just have audacity. I don't know if it's
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think it's being naive. I think it's like you just have the audacity to like be able to remove yourself like from the bounds where you're held. And I think that, a lot of times, again, back to these like limiting beliefs, like I even like someone like me is like, oh my gosh, like the idea of like even having a conversation with a bunch of investors and like using the word like VC and like all this stuff, like my immediate reaction is like, oh my God, that's so intimidating. I don't understand any of that. But again, like based on my time, that I can be like, yeah, no, I could probably figure it out though.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't have that tolerance, it's harder to get over those intimidation moments.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's naivety. I think it's just having the audacity to like to step into another sphere, and not being scared to look stupid.
Totally. You have to be a bit shameless and you have to be comfortable with rejection.
Yeah. And well, in breaking down like these things in our head that we've like kind of put on pedestals.
Yeah.
Like, again, like this is these people's jobs. Like that's why they're confident talking about it. They maybe went to school. They've been doing it a while. Like you have the capacity to learn that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. Such a like dynamic, like your career, a dynamic conversation. I ask everybody that's been on, looking back just at everything you've been through, like the ups and downs of your mental health journey, of your entrepreneurial journey, of your career, even the healing through like redefining motherhood. How do you see it? How do you see it all looking back?
I don't know. Honest is like what comes to mind. I've always been a really honest person. Like what you see is what you get. And I think I've always been honest about how I've done things as well. And it's maybe that like integrity that's kind of helped guide the whole thing, and just, being honest in the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, especially with yourself, I think too.
Yeah.
Because it does take courage. Like we keep saying it, but it all takes courage. And I think it takes courage to keep starting over.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, to your point, like you weighed out the cost of like not being courageous.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Please share where people can find you on socials, and then where they can find Peanut too.
Yeah, so Peanut is in the App Store and Google Play Store, so you can download it. It's free to use. And I'm on Instagram at Michelle Battersby.
Maybe, are you on Substack?
I am, but I haven't written in like a year.
I was going to say, I heard you say you like wrote an essay. So I was going to say, and maybe follow your unapologetic essays.
I need to get back on Substack. I don't have the time.
It's
right
so
now.
hard.
I know.
I'm doing them like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And my assistant will be like, do you have one coming out? And I'm like, if it's not there, it's not there. If it is, it is. Because you can't force yourself to like go there and it will sound bad. And so, especially if you're a writer, you just like, and everyone's trying to like, this is a total different rant, but like everyone is like ChatGPTing their like writing now, and it's pissing me off. I'm like, you don't have to do everything.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I know. I need to like re-energize my Substack, but it's dead currently, so don't go there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you leave here feeling motivated and inspired. Do not forget to rate and review the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget to follow How I See It Pod so you can keep up with podcast updates and see who's coming on next. And if you're not already, come join the fam and follow at How Han Sees It. Thank you guys.